freeze on home foreclosures and evictions set for COVID expired on July 31st. This moratorium to keep people in their homes was set in place back in September. It is not known how many people could potentially become homeless as a result of the moratorium being allowed to expire. One survey suggests the number could be 3.6 million. One woman who is highlighted in U.S. press reports is 38 years old and has ongoing health problems. Her landlord is refusing to take federal rent assistance. She's only got $800 in savings, and she could soon be out on the streets. U.S. media outlets also spoke to a mother in Las Vegas who has lost her 2 jobs and is now behind on her $900 per month rent. She is terrified of what could happen to her and her 2 children. She says that job offers are coming in, but they're not coming in fast enough. Some activists gathered outside the U.S. Capitol demanding an extension.
It actually turned out that our property was bought and our landlord wanted us out so that he could sell the property. And we put up a legal fight for the longest because we didn't have anywhere else to go. And it ended up us on the streets, you know.
We're seeing the fact that many people can't afford to live and pay rent and they get kicked out of their homes is the reason why I think we have to be here.
We fought for it in January, that it got extended. We fought for it again in June when it got extended, and we're fighting for it again now just because the pandemic isn't over and you see a surge of coronavirus cases because of Delta, and you also are seeing that people are still not fully back to work, especially the working class. They're still struggling a lot.
They were joined by Democratic lawmakers.
I know what that's like. I have been evicted before myself. I have had to sleep in my car myself. And so as a sitting congresswoman, there is no way that I could just allow Congress to recess and go on vacation and for me to just go on with my life and not care about the 7 million people. You know, I had people around me, so I felt safe. Which I didn't feel safe when I was unhoused. I had food sitting here, you know, I didn't always have food. I had enough blankets to keep me warm because it didn't get too cool last night. But that's not the reality of what happens, you know, on many nights when you are unhoused.
Now, the moratorium was allowed to expire, and then Congress went into a recess. Nancy Pelosi has called for Joe Biden to extend the moratorium before Congress reconvenes. However, the White House says there's a problem.
The Supreme Court said it could only be extended with congressional authorization. That was their decision. That's how they were able to strike it down, and that's what they said needed to happen.
Now, keep in mind, the White House is very happy to unilaterally send troops. There is plenty of dramatic, swift action coming from the executive branch, but not when it comes to rescuing America's working families. Families across the country are now panicking and losing sleep. Some are having to choose between rent and mortgage bills and food. Many are now scrambling to find a job, with the prospects of soon being out on the street seeming quite imminent.
Honestly, for me as an organizer, as a person that understands that movement building, movement power are the only thing that really transform our country, and movements have to pressure Congress to act. And whenever you create the conditions for millions more people to be experiencing homelessness and housing insecurity and the other associated factors related to that, like increased risks to the Delta variant of COVID-19, like increased risks of physical or psychological violence, and just all of the things that happen, you create the conditions for people to be organized. So I fully anticipate that the Occupy Congress hashtag is just representative of a bigger call that's going to happen because people are fed up, we're in crisis, and we're continuing to see our efforts to demand that our government overwhelmingly actually center vulnerable people, working people, poor people, yet even with the Democratic majority, after we fought so hard to get here, we're still having these massive gaps that have ultimately deadly consequence. So of course, I anticipate mass protests, mass direct action. And I think that because of those of us who are more progressive, those of us who are conscientious about the ways in which we do things and the ways that we engage in democracy.
Some who are on the brink are now talking about taking matters into their own hands. A hashtag called Occupy Congress has already been created. Some say that desperate times require desperate measures. Let's see what happens. Caleb Maupin, RT, New York.
Yeah, we talked about it some more with real estate expert Travis Sheridan, who fears the failure to extend the eviction moratorium now is going to almost certainly exacerbate the health crisis.
Well, I see two different types of impact. One, if the United States does face another lockdown or returning to working from home, that only works if you have a home, right? It's quite impossible to do lockdown if you are unhoused. And so, high numbers of evictions, potential evictions, and facing another lockdown would not be ideal. Secondly, when you are unhoused, you're facing so many more elements and environmental factors, not just the weather, but being in large spaces and crowded spaces, not able to properly social distance. And so I fear that there could be an increased spread of the Delta variant and increased cases as a result of potentially increased homelessness.